The applicant step forward. Did we get both of you?
Both of
Both
us.
doing it.
I guess start by stating your name and address, and then tell us a little bit about it.
Sure. I'm James, and this is Brittany. We live at 1801 Whit Road. Hopefully we can address some of the questions you had there. As far as the house on the north side of our property, I'll start with that one. There is a chain link fence going along the road as well. I believe our house, by our measurements, is about 44 feet off the road. Theirs is significantly less. So if you were to look at that Google Maps on where their fence actually lies, the house north of ours, probably their fence is within about 10 feet of their property from the edge of the road. So they would be a very different situation, and I guess they're not on a corner lot as well. As far as our front yard, I think it's pretty accurate, the numbers. Like I said, by our measurements, our house is set 44 feet back off the road in the front, and it would be 29 feet to the proposed fence from the roadway. Granted, there would still be a right-of-way in there for the sidewalk, so the fence would probably be about 15 feet off the sidewalk on the west side of the house on Whit Road. And on the south side, by our measurements from the corner, there's no existing sidewalk, but it's our understanding that the city plans to install a sidewalk at some point. So it was a little bit of guesswork where we came up with that 5 to 6 feet from where the sidewalk would go. But by our measurements from the corner fence post, I think we came up with about 17 feet from the road, if that would give you an idea. We have gone and talked to our neighbors, and we'll say our neighbors have dogs on every side. To our north of us, they have a couple dogs, including a German Shepherd. And on our northeast corner, they have a pit bull as well. So we have not really an issue, but we want to make sure our dogs are all contained on our side as well. So that was one of the concerns for us. What am I missing?
We do have two fairly significant easements, which is the tan colored lines, the one on the eastern boundary and then one going west to east between the two parcels themselves. And there was I'd say a discrepancy as far as the boundary goes, because as you can see, the black fence on the eastern boundary kind of takes a chunk out of it and cuts over. We have worked with the property owner adjacent to us there, and we will be extending the fence to where we actually square it up back to where it's supposed to be on the other side of the easement, and putting in a large double gate to where a bucket truck can access the pole back there in the corner.
We've also spoken to both our neighbors, and as far as on the south side, we've made sure that they'd have visibility getting out of their driveway. And with that 17 feet there, they should have no issues, and they don't seem to think that they would have an issue pulling out of their driveway. Same thing with our neighbors to the north. The fence is going to be far enough back where it's not going to obscure their visibility getting out of the driveway by any means.
And our neighbors are going to meet with our contractor as well once we bring them back out to make sure that we can coordinate everything together, because we all do have animals and try not to be the least amount disruptive as we can.
The only concern that I have is it says it's a wooden fence. And it seems like, not that it's you or whoever, but after a period of 3 or 4 years, it doesn't get restained and boards start coming off of it. At least the visible part, I would like to see something on plastic, I guess, or a vinyl fence. Is that a possibility? Across the front at least. The back I'm not too concerned with, but the visible part of it, I don't like the idea of wood.
Well, we do intend to use a treated wood, and we do intend to stain that after the wood dries to the point where we could stain it without any moisture coming out. As far as the vinyl fence, I believe that would probably double or triple the price. It's much more expensive for a vinyl fence than a wood material fence, and I don't think that'd be a realistic possibility for us at this time.
Okay.
This is a pretty expensive project considering it's almost 400 linear feet of fence. And we just purchased the property about 3 years ago now, and we put a significant amount of money into the interior of the home, and we had goals to do more to the outside, but with the right-of-way buyout, we're trying to push and be proactive to where we're ahead of that, to where there isn't any issues with the sidewalk itself, and
very much sped up our project timeline.
Yeah.
It's been one of these things, it's been a couple years on the horizon, but like we said, with the expected sidewalk coming up, we're trying to get ahead of that, knowing that we do have dogs. We don't want to have a situation where our fence is exposed for a period of time, where the dogs could get out of the yard. So really what we're trying to be as proactive as we can to make that sidewalk project go really pretty smoothly as well.
Okay. Any other questions?
On that plat you showed, Ben, earlier, it showed a couple trees in front of that fence. Is that something that's being required as well? Or is that just,
Those are existing.
they are existing?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Those two on the Woodside Road in front of the, like the garage
Yes.
side? Okay.
We have concerns with the trees as far as the sidewalk project goes because of where it's gonna be, but we're still in discussions with the city over how that's gonna be handled.
As far as the fence goes, neither one of them are particularly large trees. They're probably maybe 20 feet tall each at the most. And from where we're asking for the fence to be, that was something we took into consideration to make sure the fence was far enough back that it wouldn't be underneath those trees. But that is something that we did consider.
Okay.
How tall is the fence?
We're looking at a 6-foot fence, 6-foot fence.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Public meeting, anybody care to speak? Then, not a public meeting anymore. I'll close that end of it. Ben, you got anything you want to add?
I don't know that I have a lot to add. I will point out that those white PVC fences require maintenance too, and it's a heck of a lot easier to replace a board on a wooden fence than it is the panels on the white PVC fence. So I know we've got some places where the white PVC has been required, and now 5 years later, they look pretty miserable as well. So we're kind of relying on the homeowner to maintain their fences, but they are using a material that's approved by the city, so.
Okay. Okay, well, it's motion time.
I'll make a motion to approve docket 20-25 as written.
Second the motion.
Okay, Kelly?
Mark Vandeman,
Aye.
Bruce Polly,
Aye.
Ted Geiger,
Aye.
Ron Edwards,
Aye.
Lori Gross. Aye.
Motion passed 5-0. Congratulations. Good luck. We've got one more. Docket 2026, Fisher Construction Group representing project. The subject property is located south of D.S. Smith and west of Ken's Food in the Lebanon Business Park. The property is zoned planned business industrial and comprised of 57 acres. Ken?
All right. As you can see, there's no business name in here. This is a super secret project coming to us from the Boone EDC, Project Isle. This is a unique project. It is a cold storage warehouse, but they're using a new technology in this warehouse. So what this is the refrigerated area is all completely automated. It's done by robots. And to make that most efficient, you actually, as opposed to having 1 million square feet all spread out with 30-foot tall racking, you do that same volume, but you go up with it because you don't have to worry about people being in there. It's all totally automated. In fact, they don't have to have sprinklers because it's a low oxygen environment, so a fire can't even start in there. My understanding is this technology has only been used one other time in the state of Indiana, and there's only a handful of buildings like this in the country. So this is a technology that's used a lot more. It started over in Europe, and then now it's starting to infiltrate into the U.S. markets. So my guess is cold storage, this is going to be kind of the technology of the future. But it necessitates the cities where they're looking at to revisit their height restrictions in their business parks. Because in this case, they're looking for something that's close to double what our existing height restriction is. of 50 feet, actually more than that, more than double. I think we only permit 50 feet, and they're looking at closer to 150 or 160 feet. So again, this is something totally different than what we've had to try to review before. Don't have any comparisons here. I mean, I can show you what they're proposing in terms of facade for the buildings, so you can kind of get an idea what it looks like, but there's no buildings in the Midwest that look like this, so it's something we're really moving towards here in terms of a new technology, something that's pretty impressive, and I think it's going to be something that's used more often from a cold storage perspective, because it's much more efficient for the building to be taller and have the volume that direction than to spread the footprint out. So we'll see this used more often. So, as I said, this is a confidential project, which is why it's still being called Project Isle. Fisher Construction Group is the GC on the project. The company had requested before they selected a site to make sure that this variance could get approved. So that's why this is coming to you before we have an actual business name to provide to you. They wanted to make sure that this could get approved before they would go any further in their process in terms of a site selection, although they do intend to select a site in the very near future, and they're hoping to be under construction this fall already. So this is something they'll move very quickly once they pick the site. So let me pull up. So if they pull up the screen, I at least show you the site. This site is in the far southwest corner of the business park, about as far away from I-65 or State Road 32 you can get and still be in the business park. It's the site that wraps around where we're putting our regional detention. Ken's Foods, excuse me. Ken's Food is directly to the east here, you see. And this aerial photography is a little older, but this is D.S. Smith that's directly to the north that you see here. So there are other industrial users around them, and then primarily around that is just farm ground at this point. So that is the site, and then I'll pull up the concept plans. This is the overall site and the way this building works. The large high bay area is what you see kind of in this area that's hatched, and that would be the part that's 160 feet tall. The rest of this is a more traditional warehouse height. You can see all the truck docks on the south side of the building. The picking area is also and kind of the processing area is directly off the truck docks. But this high bay area, there would not be people in that area regularly. It's all robotic. The only time there would be anybody in there is if some sort of maintenance needs to be done. And again, like I said, it's a low oxygen environment, so everybody has to wear suits when they go in there and all that good stuff. We have reviewed this with our fire department. That was our primary concern in terms of the height, was making sure from a fire department perspective they could still service this site. They're not necessarily concerned about fighting a fire, obviously, because it's very difficult for a fire to start when you're in a low oxygen environment. They just wanted to make sure from a life safety perspective they'd have appropriate access to that area. And they had all their questions answered, and they're supportive of this building and this concept that's being proposed here. They were able to get all their questions answered. Any concerns they had were addressed. So that was our primary discussion we had, was to make sure. Yes, Mr. Edwards.
The fire department, everything is good as far as 160 foot?
Yeah, I mean, what they told us is, when you get the buildings this tall, there's no ladder truck that can get to the roof of it anyway. You've got, 60-story buildings in downtown Indianapolis. They don't fight fires from a ladder truck, so they're not concerned about the height. We've got a building in this business park that's already 80 feet tall. The ladder truck doesn't really get to and that's U.S. Cold Storage, our other cold storage facility out there. They've already got a building that's taller than the ladder truck could service to the tallest anyway, so they're not concerned about the height from a fire perspective. Like I said, their biggest concern was life safety, being able to get in and out of the building appropriately, and they had all those concerns addressed.
Okay.
Any other questions before I continue? Very good. So the request tonight then is to allow a building that exceeds the maximum height, to allow a building that's 160 feet tall. I'll just scroll down here. You kind of get an idea of the overall scale of the building. From some perspective, this is obviously, it's kind of hard to imagine a 160 foot tall building until it's actually constructed. But again, you can see here, you can see the truck bay area and the office area is more of a traditional warehouse height, and then you got the high bay area that you see here. That accommodates the cold storage part of the building.
What's the construction of the high bay?
I believe it's some sort of insulated panel. It's very similar to U.S. Cold Storage, if we're familiar with that building out there. It's in terms of the overall construction materials, it's very similar to that construction. Insulated warehouse. It's just twice the height to allow for the technology they're planning to use. For the record, we have identified the 3 findings of fact in the staff report. Approval will not be injurious to public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. Again, as I mentioned, the building instruction will meet all applicable building standards, and the fire department has reviewed the proposed building height and determined there would be no fire or life safety issues due to the increased height. Number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent property including the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. And in this case, the subject property is located in the southwest corner of the business park, so in terms of visibility from the major corridors, there's very low visibility. And the immediate neighbors are either other industrial users in the business park or in this point, agricultural fields. The closest residential use is almost a half a mile away from the proposed building location. Excuse me. And finally, the strict application in terms of UDO will result in practical difficulties. Again, this isn't a physical difficulty, but this is a new technology that's starting to be implemented in the U.S. And my guess is they're going to have the same discussion in every municipality they go to, because most business parks don't allow this kind of height, because nobody considered doing warehousing at this kind of height before. You're usually restricted about 30 to maybe even 38 feet, 40 feet is about the tallest you typically go with your traditional racking. So 50-foot heights accommodate just about every warehouse historically. So with this new technology that's coming out, it's kind of changing the marketplace a little bit and how you manage, in this case, particularly cold storage. That's probably going to be your primary users that use this kind of technology. So you're not going to see a lot of buildings like this, but if somebody's looking at cold storage in the future, this is going to be the technology that's used in the type of building that's being considered. So in this case, the practical difficulty is just because historically when we wrote the UDO, a building like this was never contemplated for this kind of use, so we had no reason to try to figure out how to accommodate it. So then, with that being said, staff has recommended approval of the development standards variance request to permit relief from the building height requirement of the UDO, subject to the following condition, and they've in fact already determined they're going to meet this requirement. And that would be that the applicant uses primarily muted or neutral color tones on the portion of the proposed building that exceeds the maximum building height. And they're using, it's either white or a light color, I think is what they proposed, and that would, it's very similar to U.S. cold storage being a white building, and that would suffice in terms of what I just want to make sure it wasn't going to be like bright blue or something like that, and really, or bright red, and really set it off. So some sort of muted tone, and they're intending to do that. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any further questions if there are any.
Ben, on that map, I was trying to look at it one more time on here. That's to the west of Ken Foods?
Yes,
Okay.
it is the last site in the business park,
Okay.
or I say the second to last site. I don't want to misspeak.
Thank you, sir.
And, trying to think, from a sightline standpoint, like being on the interstate or seeing this building from the highway, like where is that in relation to? I mean, obviously that's gonna.
I would say from the height perspective, you're going to see it no matter what.
Yeah.
It's going to be taller than everything else in the business parks. You're going to see it. But this site is probably between a half mile and probably closer to a mile from the interstate.
Or like the southwest corner,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think.
Here's the,
It's a long way from the interstate.
Yeah, it's quite a way. It's quite a ways from the interstate. I would guess close to a mile. Because I calculated the aerial photo, if they can pull the aerial photo up again on the computer. This house that's down here is about a half a mile from the building site, and the interstate's still quite a ways off the map here.
What is that Enterprise that's out there? What's it?
What this will be on is Edwards Drive.
Edwards
It's
Drive.
back even further than Enterprise Drive. You have to want to go back there to get there, because it doesn't go anywhere but to Ken's, basically.
Yeah.
Ben, what do other communities do where they've built these buildings before? Do they have different facades that allows the building to more blend in more with the surround? I'm just envisioning like a gigantic vertical warehouse, you know?
Yeah. That's in essence what it is. I mean, it's basically U.S. cold storage, but taller. So if you're
Yeah.
familiar with their building, part of their building is, I think it's 80 feet tall or 100 feet tall, one of those two. And again, it's because the efficiencies in cold storage is to make the volume vertical as opposed to spreading it out. But theirs is actually, they have people working in the cold storage and U.S. cold storage. So again, it's different technology they're looking to implement here. But yeah, it's a little hard to envision something like this. I'm not aware of another one in close proximity to here. I think the only places they've been using the USS FAR are on the coast, if I'm not mistaken.
Near the ports?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the low oxygen technology is being used at a building on the south side of Indy, but it's not in this type of building.
Thank you. Do we have an applicant?
I don't know that we do. The applicant's on the west coast, so.
Okay, well, then I'll open the meeting to the public. Care to speak? Okay, I'll close the meeting to the public. Any more questions for Ben? Anybody want to make a motion?
I make a motion to approve the development standard variance request to permit relief from the building height requirement of the UDO, subject to the following condition, that the applicant uses primarily muted or neutral color tones on the portion of the proposed building that exceeds the maximum building height.
Before we second that, or will they be coming back for other variances as this gets built out?
Yeah,
In terms of building materials and...
And actually, the building materials would meet our requirements. They just filed their development plan application for the Plan Commission, I think technically Thursday, but we got their plans today. There may be a handful of additional site variances like landscaping or things like that, but there should not be a significant list of them. But it will come back next month.
Okay. I'm just worried about the building materials and...
Yeah, the actual material itself they're proposing meets our standard. So that I was really trying to address the color. I mean, they use white in their other buildings.
Yeah.
They would do another color if we wanted it to be tan or something like that. But in terms of white versus the sky, that really doesn't set it off necessarily. I just want to make sure it wasn't some
We have
primary
signage
color.
restrictions and...
Yes,
all that.
yeah,
Okay.
they'll have to meet all our signage requirements. You're not going to see a big billboard on the side of the building. It still have to meet our requirements from that perspective. And in fact, I think they've blocked out the name of the company on the elevation. It was just a small up on the top of that, so.
Okay, we have a motion. Need a second.
Lori made a motion, and
Yeah.
we need a second.
Yes.
I would second.
Okay, we have Lori and Ron with the motions. Kelly?
Mark Vandeman,
Aye.
Bruce Pauly,
Aye.
Chad Kiger,
Aye.
Ron Edwards,
Aye.
Lori Gross.
Aye.
Motion carries. That's all we got for tonight, unless there's any additional business that needs to be looked into.
I do not have anything else.
Okay, the next meeting is scheduled for Monday, August the 3rd. Could I have a motion to adjourn tonight?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Need a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.